Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship. Warning.
I tell you, I hope one day we don't have to play that warning censorship sound. We do, only for one reason. We are streaming live on 4 different platforms right now. On Rumble.com, a Canadian-based platform that, as part of its offering, is they're not going to censor you like left-wing YouTube. Odyssey, O-D-Y-S-E-E, which is an interesting YouTube-looking channel. One of the things interesting about it is it uses cryptocurrency as sort of the fluid, the hydraulic fluid of the system. That's a scientific comparison. We're also on a new Canadian platform that's still, I'm going to say, in beta testing. It's called SuperU, the letter U.net, Canadian, and they call themselves the Free Speech Channel. That's a good sign. And of course, there is YouTube themselves. They have lifted their suspension of us, but they still have demonetized us. And we like the 1.45 million subscribers we have there, even if we no longer trust, respect, or like the YouTube company itself. Right now, just glancing at the 4 different streams I have open on my computer, we have 40 people on SuperU. We have, what's the number here on Rumble? 570 already on Rumble. That's great. Nice to see you. On the YouTube censorship channel, we have 557. Isn't that fun that Rumble is already bigger? And let me get the Odyssey number here. We got 31 on the Odyssey. All right, I won't talk any more about that. I know that's sort of my own business, the business of video streaming, but in a way it's your business too, because the censorship and the restrictions and the cancel culture and the deplatforming that is aimed at us, it's aimed at you too. I was talking to a lawyer today about our PayPal case, and I think that, I mean, just to refresh your memory, those of you who don't know, PayPal, about 10 days ago, without, was it 10 days ago or was it just a week ago, something like that? So much has happened. Without warning, notice, explanation, appeal, or anything, without any communication whatsoever, they just sent us a generic spam email on Friday night saying, oh, we're suspending all your channels because you broke the rules. Okay, what did we do that broke what rules? So what did we do? Oh, you know what you did. Well, no, actually I don't. We publish a news company. I looked at your terms of service. You say no selling cigarettes, no obscenity, no Ponzi schemes, no pornography, no, weapons, no knives. Yeah, that's pretty much not what we do. So they won't tell us what rule we broke. They won't tell us what we did that allegedly broke that secret rule. And despite a week of attempts by our lawyers, they will not communicate with us in any substantial way. All right, let's rumble. Because it's not only their breach of contract, which is illegal, but the manner in which they do it is legally relevant too. And I'm not going to take you through the case law on that again. I really enjoyed going through the Shopify versus Rage On t-shirt case that showed, even if you disagree with Shopify, and frankly I do disagree with them on their rules, they at least went back and forth for 4 months with this t-shirt company called Rage On before they pulled the plug. 4 months they tried. They tried with emails, they tried with phone calls, they tried with letters just to get them into compliance. Now I don't think that I don't think their rules were correct, but that's not the point. The point is, Shopify said to this t-shirt company called Rage On, you're breaking the rules, we're going to cut you off. And the company Rage On said, okay, well, let's try and fix it, we'll hire some people. Like they actually went, I thought Rage On did some interesting things. But Shopify took almost half a year before they pulled the trigger on them. And if I were haggling with a tech company, and if they said, well, this violates our rule and that doesn't, now, if they were talking about editorial content, I got to tell you, I most likely would tell them to F off. I mean, really, that's none of the business at PayPal, Shopify, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, even if their rule was reasonable, sorry, you're not my editor, PayPal. I mean, you're a bank. Be quiet, sit in the corner, and handle the money. That's your job. What if the water company said, we you've been using our water as a loyal customer of our water company for 49 years. You've been having showers and baths. You've been boiling things with it. You've even watered your lawn. Thank you for being an outstanding customer of our water company. But we heard you had an opinion on Donald Trump that we don't like, so we're going to cut off your water. Nah, mate, be quiet, sit in the corner, and keep the water flowing and make sure it's wet this time, all right? Seriously, why would the water company cutting you off because you have an opinion on Donald Trump or the pandemic or Justin Trudeau, why would that be any more outrageous than the PayPal company? Be quiet, PayPal. Know your place. Sit there, be quiet, and then hold the money, and then pay the money, and do the money stuff. And other than that, shut up. No, they have something to say, apparently, about what political ideas you're allowed. So my point is, this is the hill to die on, so to speak. This is the big fight. If PayPal is allowed to censor, blacklist, cancel, deplatform anyone for a content reason, for a politics, like if I was committing a crime, like one of the things in their acceptable use policy in their terms of service is no Ponzi schemes. You know what that is? That's like a kind of a scam, a financial scam. It's like a pyramid scheme. It's like you pay me $2 and then you recruit people to pay you. I sort of forget how those things work, but it's a scam. It's not a real service. It's basically find another sucker to keep the pyramid going. That's the kind of thing that's banned by PayPal. I accept those limits because that's the pith and substance of that is not political. It's actually a financial scam. And you want your bank to be against financial scams. But you don't want your bank to be into the business of what can you say about Joe Biden or Donald Trump or Justin Trudeau or who's the conservative guy now. You don't want your bank to have an opinion on that. Or if they have an opinion, as we all do, I guess, keep it to yourself. Or even if you don't want to keep it to yourself, don't impose it on me. Same with you, water company. Same with you, electric company. Same with you, natural gas company. Same with you, garbage pickup company. Oh, we've decided to stop picking up your garbage because we saw you posted something on Facebook that you don't like masks outside. By the way, the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control, is now saying, oh, you don't have to wear masks outside. Maybe you never had to, and maybe not a single case of transmission through casual outdoor contact. Oh, yeah, we've just been wearing them for the last 14 months as a flag of lockdown. And if you didn't know that, then I put it to you, you're willfully blind. If you didn't know that the main purpose of the mask was obedience and to condition you to do what they say, if you didn't realize that, I think your eyes might be closed. So what we got today? You know, there's a lot cooking. I've been busy with some matters, so I'm delighted to be back in this chair. As you know, I sit here every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. My colleagues, Sheila Gunn-Reid, David Menzies, typically fill in Thursdays and Tuesdays. And Justin, he follows what we're all doing. So he typically puts together a list of suggested topics. And I'll read to you what Justin has curated for today. The first thing on the list is our friend Lincoln Jay is in the United Kingdom. And he did a little video on a mum who was handcuffed for being on the beach with her son playing catch or something. We'll play that video for you. It's shocking. Then I think we're going to spend some time on the war in Israel. And just to say those words, it's funny, there hasn't been a war in Israel for about 5 years, has there? As in, under Donald Trump, there wasn't this kind of war. In fact, it was sort of the opposite. I don't know if you remember. I mean, the media sort of downplayed it. If it were a Democrat president, he would have won 5 Nobel Peace Prizes for already. Donald Trump, and actually, give the guy credit, his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, negotiated a series of peace deals they called the Abraham Accords, because if you know your Bible and if you know your Quran, Abraham is regarded, well, he's regarded as the father of all the monotheistic religions. So Here it looks, I'm trying to decipher which flags are what there. There's the Israeli Prime Minister talking to Donald Trump. I don't know the identity of those other men, but they may be with Morocco, they may be with Sudan. I don't think those are the flags for the United Arab Emirates and for Bahrain, two other Arab countries that made peace with Israel. As far as I know, the United Arab Emirates came up big and strong, so did Bahrain. Then there's Sudan and Morocco. I may be missing, I think Kosovo. That was the UAE and Bahrain. Okay, thank you very much. I didn't recognize the flags, and I thought those guys always wore sort of a different style of robe or something. Anyways, so Kosovo, I think, did something similar, and there may be one or two other countries actually in Africa. To get a single peace deal, well, let me put it this way. Both Bill Clinton and, Yasser Arafat, got the Nobel Peace Prize for a peace deal that he didn't actually commit to. I think Jimmy Carter got a peace deal for the Egypt-Israel peace agreement. Trump did 5 agreements, and you don't even remember. My point is, during the Trump presidency, there were no new wars started with America, and America actually, incredibly, oversaw and helped provide the blueprint for several Israel-Arab peace treaties, and they seem warm and genuine. For example, I learned the other day that Israel and the United Arab Emirates were creating a sort of a COVID bubble. They have so much back and forth travel now that they said, okay, if you're good in one country, you're good in the other, you don't have to quarantine. That's sort of cool. I wish we had that with our best friend, ally, neighbor, and trading partner, the United States. Wouldn't you like that? So Israel and the United Arab Emirates, I think that's in effect. I heard it was coming. I presume it was carried through on. You had 4 years of peace under Trump, and here we are 100 days into Biden, and you have the worst outbreak of violence in the region. Show me some of that footage, the rocket attacks from Gaza into Israel. And Israel has a defensive weapon system called the Iron Dome. Those are rockets and then anti-rockets. So the little explosions you see in the air are Israeli Iron Dome anti-missiles blowing up terrorist rockets in real time. It looks like fireworks, doesn't that? So this is actually footage from Avi Yamini's brother. So what are those strange things in the sky? That's called the Iron Dome system. Now, going from memory, each of those anti-rockets, those anti-missiles, cost over $100,000. And as you can see, they're thrown up there like just like rice at a wedding, right? Like confetti at a wedding. Now, they do knock down a lot of the rockets and missiles. But what's a rocket? Like, these aren't guided rockets. These aren't expensive rockets. They're just really one step above homemade. So, you know, probably costs a few $100 to make some of these rockets, and it's $100,000 to knock them down. I guess that shows the value that Israel places on civilian life, because these rockets are not being aimed at military installments. They're being aimed at population centers. So that's Israel. It's under great attack. Here's Biden's press secretary on this. I have not seen this clip yet, but this is Joe Biden's press aide talking about the situation.
Since last week, he has directed his team to engage intensively with senior Israeli and Palestinian officials, as well as leaders throughout the Middle East. His team is communicating a clear and consistent message in support of de-escalation, and that is our primary focus. The president's support for Israel's security, for its legitimate right to defend itself, and its people is fundamental and will never waver. We condemn ongoing rocket attacks by Hamas and other terrorist groups, including against Jerusalem. We also stand against extremism that has inflicted violence on both communities. Jerusalem, a city of such importance to people of faith around the world, must be a place of coexistence. It is up to the officials, residents, and leaders to restore the city to a place of calm. The president and his team will continue to pursue the conditions for diplomacy, dialogue, and de-escalation, and protection of civilians, even as we work together with our friends to deter acts of violence and terrorism. We will also continue to support a two-state solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. That is the only way to ensure the just and lasting peace that two peoples have struggled to achieve. We believe Palestinians and Israelis deserve equal measures of freedom, security, dignity, and prosperity, and U.S. officials in recent weeks have spoken candidly with Israeli officials about how evictions of Palestinian families who have lived for years, sometimes decades, in their homes, and of demolitions of these homes work against our common interests in achieving a solution to the conflict. In the coming days, as Muslims gather with family and friends to celebrate Eid, and Jews join together to mark the beginning of Shabbat, let us affirm that all people of faith deserve to enjoy these important celebrations without fear of violence and work toward peace and calm for all.
How do you, so let's say you're an Israeli civilian and those rockets are coming in. Those first rockets were over Tel Aviv. How do you de-escalate when a terrorist group called Hamas is shooting rockets at you? How do you de-escalate if you're a civilian target? I'm curious about that. One of the things she said, which I think is important, even though it sounds like boilerplate, is she said that a two-state solution, that is carving Israel up, is, quote, the only way to get peace. I don't know if you heard that. So that's the Iron Dome shooting down rockets over a modern city, looks like Tel Aviv. Is that really the only way to get peace? You know, during the Trump years, Trump said, you know, it's not the only way to get peace. Peace between Israel and Morocco doesn't depend on what the terrorists in Gaza say. Peace between Israel and Bahrain doesn't depend on it, or Israel and Sudan, or Israel and UAE. In fact, by saying you can't get peace without dealing with those terrorists, you're basically saying you don't want peace. Because Trump proved for 4 years that not only can you get peace, it is you just go and do it without listening to what the terrorists in Gaza say. The terrorists are called Hamas. Trump cut off funding to the Palestinian Authority, especially to the West Bank, to the Gaza Strip, because of the terrorism. Joe Biden restored the funding, and so now I guess with terrorists have the money, they got money for rockets. Hey, you Israelis, will you de-escalate? Let's sum up where we are after 100 days of Biden. Incredibly, you've got gas shortages in the United States. Did you see that? In the United States, gas stations are running out of gas. I saw a tweet this morning, 70% of gas stations, I think it was in the city of Charlotte, that's a big city, are out of gas. Gas shortages? Now, I happen to know a few things about gas, gasoline, oil, refining, and things of that sort, just because I'm from Alberta and I've written 2 books on oil and gas. One was called Ethical Oil, the case for Canada's oil sands. The other was called Groundswell, the case for fracking. Greenboro, I thought it was Charlotte. Or it's everywhere. Greenboro, North Carolina, 25-car line to get gas, 45-minute wait. There's a ton of those. Type in, I thought I read Charlotte. Type in Charlotte gas in Twitter, because I thought I read that like 70% of gas stations there are out of gas. How do you have a gas station out of gas? And how do you do that? I know how that happened. Imagine what's NYS, I don't know what that is, had a gas shortage, breaking 71% of gas stations in Charlotte, North Carolina area out of fuel, 71%. Charlotte, Mecklenburg police are calling the situation a gas crisis and have requested that all non-essential travel be avoided. Really? Now, what I've learned in my studies about fracking, oil sands, refineries, stuff like that, is that particularly under Trump, America has become energy self-sufficient, which I have to say, I wrote the book Ethical Oil about 10 years ago. I would not have imagined America would be energy self-sufficient because I wrote Ethical Oil before the fracking revolution really took hold. And you can frack for both oil and gas. So natural gas is so plentiful in the United States and so cheap that it's, it is the preferred fuel for so many uses in homes, but also in power plants, by the way. It's so cheap that it's replacing coal, which is why America has reduced its carbon dioxide emissions more than any other country, if you care about that sort of thing. It wasn't some global warming regulation that did it. It was the fracking revolution that made natural gas so cheap, and natural gas replaces coal and it's less carbon intensive. The second thing is you can frack oil. And so oil is refined into gasoline. We say gas, I'm going to get some gas. That's just short for gasoline. You're not putting natural gas in your car, you're putting gasoline. That comes from oil. So in both natural gas, which you use to heat your home, natural gas stove, there are some natural gas vehicles, not many, lots of power plant uses, and gasoline, which comes from oil, both of which come from fracking. America has never produced more. It takes a special genius to spike the price of gasoline to a 7-year high, I think, and actually have shortages. So let's just sum up Joe Biden so far. You got a tepid economy, massive debt. You've got war in the Middle East again. You got criticizing Israel for that war, even though it's a victim of it. You've got high gas prices and gas shortages. That is an incredibly quick turnaround from the way Donald Trump was running America. And it shows that elections have consequences. It's incredible to me. I think I'm going to talk more on my show tonight about the situation in Israel. And just saying that, I'm thinking, it has been so long since we've talked about that, because as Sherlock Holmes would say, that's the dog that didn't bark. You know, we're always focusing on the barking dogs, but was it, I forget which story it was of Sherlock Holmes' series. The clue was the dog that didn't bark, the thing that wasn't there, the absence of a factor rather than the presence of it. And I think we've all forgotten what it was like before Trump. I think we were so used to a strong economy, strong stock market, strong employment, affordable energy, energy self-sufficiency, countries not trying anything, terrorists being on the defensive. We were so used to that. For 4 years, we forgot about all those dogs that just were not barking. Biden is back. Those dogs are barking. It's incredible to me. We're not doing the super chat thing. We're just doing other chit chat. Justin is curating those. We have a hyper chat from Odyssey. Someone gave us one library crypto. Not A10 says, is there a place people can go to support your PayPal lawsuit? Yes. Is that A10? SaveRebelNews.com. So for those who want to help us, we're trying to put together two parts here. The first part is to fill the gap from PayPal, because they blew $1 million hole in the side of our ship. And we're at over 106,000. That's great. And the next part is help fund our lawsuit against PayPal. We're trying to raise 150 grand. We're just under 70 grand there. So that's coming along. People really want to fight back against PayPal. I can tell you that I have spoken with, well, I don't want to give away our strategy till we do it, but I've spoken with lawyers today. And we may be in a position to file the lawsuit as soon as this week. We may do it next week. Obviously, this lawsuit has to be written in such a strong manner, such a clear manner. Our lawsuit against PayPal, given the facts and given the law, I think maybe the last best chance to stop this financial deplatforming. When I say the facts, I told you how they were so high-handed, they didn't give us any reasons, we weren't doing anything bad, they've been not returning our lawyers' calls for a week, they've been not returning his letters for a week. So that's the perfect fact pattern. We were doing nothing wrong. They were absurd in how they fired us, no warning, no appeal, no explanation, no communication. And they've just haven't even dealt with us afterwards. That is such bad behavior. on their part, and we've done nothing wrong. We've tried to get into compliance. They won't tell us what we've done wrong. I think it's the perfect case to take to court. And if we don't, who will? And if we don't do it now, how long are you going to wait? We've got to stop this financial deplatforming now. And if you want to be part of that, go to saverebelnews.com and you can see our lawsuit clickable there. On YouTube, Jason Morgan says Americans will be begging for Trump to come back. Yeah, well, I mean, get ready for all the, I mean, like I say, all those things that we forgot about, like war in the Middle East. On Odyssey, Chrissy's Kingdom says gas shortage while neighbors of the north are loaded in it, but for some reason the current U.S. government and our ruling Canadian government does not want our oil, but instead they want to import dirty oil from Saudi, Venezuela, basically keep OPEC in business while breaking with America. The United States is a net energy exporter. I'd have to check on crude oil itself. Incredibly, America imports millions of barrels a day from Canada, but also exports an enormous amount of oil to us a day, because the oil from Western Canada goes south. But there's a lot of fracked oil that comes in by rail into Eastern Canada. Did you know that? I think America is actually the largest source of oil imports in Canada. I'd have to check. I don't want to go from memory because it's not even a memory thing. That changes every month, really. So there you go. Let's do a quick check. We got 76 people on Super U. We'll have to promote that channel again. They had a bump in the road, so I want to make sure they ironed out the wrinkles first. 1,722 watching on Rumble. That's great. And I say that's great because looking at the censorship channel on YouTube, 1,420. We got more people watching on Rumble than we do on YouTube. That says a lot. And we are here on Library with 79 folks, so there you go. I want to shift gears. So we talked a little bit about Israel, and we talked a little bit about PayPal. Our friend Lincoln J is in the United Kingdom, and he's been catching up on Fight the Fine stories there, and he's just generally been having a great time. And I want to show you, I don't think we can play it all because I think it's about 7 minutes. Here is a video that Lincoln recorded in the United Kingdom about a Fight the Fines case there. Take a look.
He said, you need to give your name. We packed up all our stuff and we were walking off. And she said to my husband, you need to get someone to look after your 7-year-old. She came up to me and said, I'm going to arrest you, and she cuffed me. And she said to my husband, you need to get someone to look after your 7-year-old because you're next.
Lincoln J for Rebel News here in London, England. Now I'm covering the Fight the Fines cases here in the United Kingdom. Would you ever think you'd be put in handcuffs, thrown in the back of a police car, just for simply taking your family to the beach for some exercise? I know it sounds ridiculous, but that's exactly what happened to Joe Mannering, who was on the receiving end of a £200 fine for doing just that. Take a listen to Joe's story.
So it was a hot, sunny day, and we decided, myself and my husband and my 7-year-old, that we'd come down here and throw a ball around and get some exercise, as it's really important, and we thought we'd enjoy the sunny days. We were accosted by 2 police officers saying that came straight over to us and said that we are committing COVID crimes against Regina. There were other people sitting around on walls and on the beach, but they came straight over to us. And at this point, I was quite incensed and just thought, what's happening? Why are they doing this? We're just exercising. And myself and my husband said, we are exercising. That's what we're allowed to do. And we were told specifically that this had to be continuous swimming, cycling, running or walking. That is exactly what they said. And that we couldn't do this. That we couldn't throw our ball around. We had to be continuously swimming, cycling, running and walking. I was just so incensed and upset that they'd ruined our day. And there were so many people around looking and watching. I felt embarrassed and ashamed. And I just said, no, we're doing what we're allowed to do. Why are you doing this? Why are you coming over and bullying us? Why leave us alone? To which she carried on, was calling for backup. We said, you need to give your name. We packed up all our stuff and we were walking off. And she said to my husband, you need to get someone to look after your 7-year-old. She came up to me and said, I'm going to arrest you, and she cuffed me. And she said to my husband, you need to get someone to look after your 7-year-old because you're next. To which my husband was saying, this is pathetic, this is embarrassing, how are you doing this to a mum who's just playing ball with a child? And she said, I don't care. You know, I was surprised, and you know, I sort of flailing around a little bit with my arms because I was just like, what's happening? She just took me by surprise, and yeah, just cuffed me. So once she'd put me in the cuffs, she brought me along down here. There was loads of people watching, loads of onlookers, people videoing, bundled me into the car, gave me a £200 fine, and then de-arrested me and let me go, basically. And you know, this is the state of Britain as it is at the moment. I just felt like I was mistreated, like they were really rough with me, treated me like a criminal, just taking away all of my human rights. I just felt so embarrassed, just ashamed, incensed. I just felt like, what have we done wrong? I haven't done anything wrong, and just being treated like an absolute criminal. I feel really sad about the state of Britain today. I think that our freedoms have been taken away from us, our human rights. You know, if I can't exercise with my son on the beach, throwing a ball around, what has happened to this country? I think the lockdowns are draconian. I think there's been so much damage. People have lost their businesses. Mental health is through the roof. Suicides are up 200%. You know, when are we going to say is enough? This has been a year. You know, and then I just think it's so unfair. I think we need to stand up more. We need to stand up for what's right, and we need to fight together.
So that was Jo's story. Luckily, she reached out to us at Rebel News, and we put our legal team on the case. Here's what they had to say.
I'm Daniel Burke. I'm Jo Mannering's solicitor. Her case is being supported by Rebel News. Jo was walking on the beach in Clacton with her husband and 7-year-old son and throwing a ball to each other as part of their daily exercise. Police officers attended and told her that what she was doing didn't constitute daily exercise because there had to be continual movement, such as running or swimming or cycling. That's actually incorrect. The police were incorrect on that. There's no requirements for exercise to be continual or to be of a certain form, and certainly for a 7-year-old throwing a ball could constitute exercise in our view. She was understandably upset because this took place in front of a young child. After becoming upset, she was handcuffed and put into the back of a police car, and they were told that they would need to find childcare arrangements because the father, who had also become upset, was threatened with arrest too. And it was only after she provided her personal details that Jo was released from the back of the police car back to her son, who was obviously very scared by what he had seen. We have been told that Jo will receive a fine but hasn't yet received that. If she does get that, we will of course challenge it. We've written a very robust letter complaining about the attitude of the officers and pointing out that they were simply incorrect on their interpretation of the law. Simply as an aside, the beach to where they went to throw a ball to each other was 1.1 miles away from their home, so it's less than a 20-minute walk with a young child. So we will continue to represent Jo in this matter.
So you just heard from the legal team. It seems like we've got a real case on our hands here. It's thanks to your support that we're able to provide a lawyer to help fight back against these fines. If you or anyone you know has received a fine that has anything to do with COVID-19, please don't pay that fine. We'll get you a lawyer and we'll fight it for you. For Rebel News, I'm Lincoln J.
You know, it's nice to see him over there. I'm sort of jealous. I wish I was out there too. One of the things that I see on his Twitter feed, for example, is just how normalizing they're getting out there. Masks are rare, looks like. People are out and about. There's lots of outdoor dining, even though it's a bit chilly there still. I understand that the pubs are opening on May 17th. British pub culture is very important. Pubs over there, as we've talked about before, aren't like bars here where it's just, where they're dark and it's just adults. Pubs there are bright. They're like gastro pubs, is I think the phrase that the cool kids use. And there's families. That's the real difference. People go to the pub, they hang out. Yeah, they have some beer, but they really have meals, and the kids come and they visit. It's just like a hangout. It took me as a Canadian a little while to get used to it, to understand it. But that's the best place to be in any town, is a pub. I think they're reopening in 5 days, is what I'm saying. So Lincoln's over there. He's catching up on our Fight the Fines UK stuff. And by the way, one more thing is to go over there to get into the UK. Their quarantine is only 5 days. And he didn't have to do it at some airport jail kind of thing. He could book his own hotel room anywhere in the city. He had to be there for 5 days, and he had to take a test. But it was only a 5-day quarantine, and I'm not saying that's easy. But boy, that's a lot easier than 14 days. So I am sort of jealous. Plus, I just enjoy the UK so much, and I lament the fact I haven't been there in 14 months. We have very important Fight the Fines work in Canada, of course. Over the weekend, we were extremely busy with the case of Pastor Arthur Pawlowski. We hired an excellent legal team and then got him out of jail on Monday morning. Was it Monday? Monday afternoon. It was Monday morning that our team went to court in Calgary and got a court order by Mr. Justice Germain of the Court of Queen's Bench, which is the high court in, like the senior court, so to speak, in Alberta. There's provincial court and then there's Court of Queen's Bench, which is more senior. And so that judge issued an order to the jail, called the Remand Center, to let Arthur go. And the jail refused to honor it. They sent it back to the judge saying, oh, you have to send us 2 orders, Judge. Who the hell are you? What? You're a prison guard. He's the judge. He said let the prisoner out. Who are you to quarrel with him? The government already did quarrel with him. The government had a lawyer there representing the Attorney General and the Department of Health. They lost, let the guy out. For hours, those rogue prison guards argued with the judge. They wouldn't let Pastor Arthur out of the jail. I know you're thinking that can't be true. It's true. I heard it from our lawyer herself. Incredible. So I spoke to Arthur a couple times on Monday. You want to call up my tweets on Monday night if you can find them? Just to refresh my memory, I wrote about 8 tweets. I spoke to Arthur that night. So he got home and he caught up with his family and whatever, but he did call me. And so I'll just read this to you just so I get my facts right, so I remember them precisely. This was, as you can see, this was at 9 p.m. on Monday night. I just spoke on the phone with Pastor Arthur Pawlowski. He's finally out of prison and back home after his jailers at the Calgary Remand Center refused for hours to honor Justice Germain's order to release him. That in itself is a scandal. It's true. Pastor Arthur says that even as he drove home from the jail, police followed him, both in vehicles and by helicopter. I'm sorry, that's just insane. They're harassing him, targeting him, stalking him. This hasn't been about a virus for a long time. This is about snuffing out a political enemy of the state. That's crazy. Pastor Arthur says they moved him and his brother David from jail to jail and did not notify his lawyers of that fact. They also repeatedly denied his request to speak with his lawyers, and his lawyers told me they tried repeatedly to contact him but were ignored and denied. That's illegal, by the way. Pastor Arthur tells me that at his bail hearing this morning, he was literally in leg irons, like he was a murderer who might run off or something. What an absolute eternal disgrace to the government of Alberta. Pastor Arthur told me they had initially sought to put him in solitary confinement for 24 days, which they claimed was a COVID protection measure. Solitary confinement is widely regarded as a form of torture. It's true, I've seen it. Pastor Arthur told me that they tried to force him to wear a mask as well, but backed down. Could you imagine that? We spoke about a few other matters that I will not disclose though the government is surveilling him and is likely listening to his communications, they use sophisticated cell phone harvesting equipment to identify everyone who attended the church. Next tweet. I signed off when one of his lawyers phoned him, and he took that call. If you want to help with his lawyers, and he's going to need all the help he can get, please go to savearthur.com. You'll receive a Canadian charitable tax receipt, so that's great. Pastor Arthur called me back after his phone call with his lawyers. The only other news I have is that the contempt of court hearing that was scheduled for tomorrow, that would be yesterday now, has been postponed. Obviously, the police prohibited him from consulting his lawyers. So bad behavior on the part of Alberta government, on the part of the jailers, on the part of the prosecutors, on the part of the Justice Department, on the part of Alberta Health. Just bad behavior all around. I enjoyed my conversation with Pastor Arthur. I didn't want to keep him long, and I did have a couple of things I talked with him about that's offering different forms of help to him that I don't want to disclose for strategic reasons, but it is my goal to help him in ways that we can. As you know, savearthur.com, when you make a donation there, it doesn't actually go to Rebel News. I just want to make sure you know this. It goes to a registered Canada Revenue Agency charity called the Democracy Fund. So the donation goes to the Democracy Fund. It's used to pay the lawyers directly. And you actually get a charity receipt from the Democracy Fund. So point one, the money does not go to Rebel News. Point two, you get a charity tax receipt. And let me just give you an example of what that means. If you live, it's slightly different province to province because there's different tax rates. But in general, if you were to give a $100 donation, without the tax credit, it's just $100, right? But if you give it through the Democracy Fund, which is at savearthur.com, yeah, this is the Red Cross calculator for the same thing. So that's for Ontario. If you give $100, you get a tax credit of about 20 back. And yeah, let's try Alberta, good idea. 25 back in Alberta, that's a surprise. So it's slightly different in every province, but the message is you're actually saving on your taxes. So this is how I think of it. And you tell me if this is the right way to think of it. I say, look, let's say you've got to shove this pile of money to Justin Trudeau every year in taxes, to Trudeau and the premiers. If there's a way that you can keep some of that money out and give it to a good cause like Arthur Pavlovsky, why wouldn't you do it, right? So it not only lets you give more to Arthur, but you're taking it away from what you were going to pay in taxes to Trudeau and Kenney and Ford or whatever. So I mean, I think I'm thinking about that the right way. If you get a tax credit, that's sort of what that means. Am I thinking about that the right way? That's what that means, right? That's right. So who wouldn't want to do that? So some more chats coming through that Justin is selecting. Paul Barron, Lincoln did a great job reporting. Yeah, I like Lincoln. He's still learning things, and he's getting better every day. Jordana, our politicians don't want Canada to get back to normal. You're so right. You're so right. We really are amongst the most harsh in the world. Super U, Gorg in 1961, Arthur made them look bad when he wouldn't allow them access to his church. Oh, that's, you know what, it's funny, and again, I don't think I'm telling tales out of school. I know that we selected the lawyers for Arthur, we recruited them. Sarah Miller is the main lawyer. There's 2 other lawyers on the file. I speak to those lawyers every day. Generally, I just want to know what's going on. I have occasional advice for them, but they're smarter than me. So I just really want to make sure there's no miscommunication. So I talk to those lawyers every day. There's Sarah, and then there's Robert at the same firm, and then there's another lawyer on the criminal side. And this is what Sarah Miller told me, and I don't think I'm telling tales out of school here, because it was in public court. You're not going to believe this, Justin. What was one of the reasons the government of Alberta said to the judge, I don't know if this was in an affidavit or live testimony. You know one of the reasons why the government of Alberta wanted to jail Pastor Arthur Pawlowski? You're not going to believe this, but this is what Sarah Miller told me. She's a lawyer, and she's not an exaggerator. She's not, like, she's just a lawyer, right? She said this to me. You're not going to believe this. When Arthur called those armed SWAT team cops coming into the church during a church service, when Arthur called them Gestapo, that's a German word, that was the name of the domestic political police in Germany in the 30s and 40s, in the Nazi era. When Arthur called them the Gestapo, which is his opinion, it's a dramatic thing to say, but he's from Poland, a country that was devoured by the Nazis and then by the Soviets, and his family lived through that. I think he has the license to use that word when armed cops come into his church service. Yeah, I can see that. Hand of God. The government of Alberta said to the court that because Pastor Arthur Pawlowski called those cops Gestapo, that is a reason why he should be kept in custody. I swear to God, the fact that he called them a name that hurt their feelings was a reason they said to the court he should be jailed. You must be saying, Ezra, that can't be true. Sorry, I was told it by a lawyer who was in the court. Is that crazy to you? Is that crazy to you? That's crazy to me. These are crazy days. Yeah, you know what? By the way, that's an opinion. And by the way, you're allowed to have an opinion. And by the way, hate to say it, you don't want someone calling you Gestapo? How about don't go into a church during a church service with a bunch of firearms and shut it down? How about don't do that? You know, there's 7 days a week. He's got his church service for 2 hours or whatever. How about go a different time, a different day? And how about you don't need guns with you? Here's a pro tip, Calgary police. You don't want to be called the Gestapo? Don't act like Gestapo. And then it's a double Gestapo move to say to the judge, he called me Gestapo, so lock him up like the Gestapo would do. You just proved his point, you Gestapo. That's a true story. That is a true story. I'm mad about that. How are we doing for time? It's 12:47. You know, I want to take you from the worst jurisdiction in the world, Alberta, Canada, which has arrested not one but two Christian pastors now. I don't know any other jurisdiction in the world, not even in China or Nigeria or Pakistan or Iran, that's arrested one Christian pastor. But Alberta has now jailed two Christian pastors, and I don't know anyone who's even in second place. Let's take you from the worst jurisdiction in the world to one of the best. And by that I refer to Florida, under the steady hand of Ron DeSantis, the governor there. We got a little sound on tape. Let's take a listen.
Kids do not need to be wearing these masks, okay? I'm sorry, they don't. We need to be able to let them be kids and let them act normally, and that's what should be the case in the fall throughout the school year.
There were two people in that press conference who had masks. There was a lady behind him in the blue mask, and then there was a gentleman on the other side of him in a mask. No one else had masks. I don't know why only those ones did. I think that DeSantis got the shot, but he's not crazy about it. In fact, I think he's banned vaccine passports, if I'm not mistaken. I'll have to double check that. And he's just saying no more masks. Just no more masks in school. And you know, there was a time when DeSantis himself would wear masks in public events and photo ops. I haven't seen him in a mask in weeks. Maybe I'm wrong on that. Maybe if he still goes into like a senior's home where not everyone is vaxxed, maybe he wears a mask. I don't know. I have not seen him wear a mask. Whereas that idiot Joe Biden was on a Zoom call with foreign leaders, and he was the only foreign leader wearing a mask on a Zoom call. I like to joke, well, he heard about computer viruses. What about computer viruses? You're so smart. You're so smart, Ezra. He was just wearing it to protect himself from a computer virus. So that's Ron DeSantis, who the media demonized, and yet he's just leading the way, isn't he? Now, one of the worst governors in America, and there's 50 to choose from, so that's quite a statement. I think Andrew Cuomo of New York City is the worst. He's a serial sex predator. He's the one who sentenced thousands of people to death by sending sick COVID patients into seniors' homes. Why did you do that? But of course, the media, you know, they're fine with him because he's a Democrat. They gave him, was it an Emmy or an Emmy? They gave him an Emmy award, didn't they, for his TV presentation? They gave. Was Harvey Weinstein involved with the choosing there? So DeSantis is, actually, I think he's the best governor in America. Actually, I think it's by a long shot. Cuomo is the worst, in my opinion, but Gavin Newsom is in the biggest, Andrew Cuomo to receive an international Emmy for masterful COVID-19 briefings. Yeah, how am I shocked that that male feminist is also a sexual predator, and how am I shocked that the media is fine with him? They never really had anything against Harvey Weinstein except for that he got caught. Gavin Newsom is the governor of America's largest state, the once mighty California. The thing about California is they have recall laws that are actually doable. Province of Alberta, Canada, has a fake recall law that the bar is so high it is impossible. No one will ever be recalled. You have to get so many signatures. It's impossible to do. There's so many restrictions. It's a fake recall law designed to trick you into thinking, oh, there's a recall law. No, there's not. California has a recall law that's doable. I think they needed about 1.5 million signatures, and they got them. And so Gavin Newsom is being recalled. So if I remember from the last time there was a recall, there was a terrible governor about 20 years ago, and that's when Arnold Schwarzenegger got in. I don't know if you remember. There was, should there be a recall or not? And then they have another vote. So I think Gavin Newsom is going to campaign against his recall. So you have a petition that forces a vote. And if I understand it, if I remember it right, the first vote is, okay, so are we going to fire the current guy? If the answer is no, he stays in. If the answer is yes, and they have another election, and who's running? So Gavin Newsom he's on the back foot. And he's scared because there's anger out there, and he has been the worst. So here's him saying, hey guys, remember I shut down everything and all the restaurants and all the schools, and you remember I was a real mask freak? Okay, so you guys are recalling me now. I have some new ideas on that. Here's Gavin Newsom.
And are we looking at masks after June 15th?
No, only in those settings that are indoor, only in those massively large settings where people around the world, not just around the country, are convening, and when people are mixing in real dense spaces. Otherwise, we'll make guidance recommendations, but no mandates and no restrictions in businesses large and small.
Well, who's running for his political life? Couldn't happen to a nicer guy. You know, both Andrew Cuomo and Gavin Newsom were touted as possible presidential material. I mean, never say never. I mean, look at Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. So never say never. But both of them have a bit of a dent on them now. One guy who I don't think will ever be president, but frankly, I'd like to see him on the United States Supreme Court when he's done in the Senate, because I think he's doing important work in the Senate, is the Texas senator by the name of Ted Cruz. And there was a Democrat named Amy Klobuchar. She ran for president for the Democrats. Terrible candidate, just completely unlikable. So she was testifying or giving a speech in the Senate, and Ted Cruz was right there. And it's sort of funny because he was ignoring her and sort of tweeting about it. Here, take a look.
When in fact you, Senator Cruz, not all of your colleagues here today, you were contesting the Electoral College. You were one of the leaders on the effort to say that the election results were not correct. And so you wonder why we want to make sure that people have the right to vote.
he was just surfing Twitter. Can you go to his Twitter feed? Because you said, well, what's he doing on? Maybe you never know what a guy's looking at on his phone. Like you see that, but you do that no matter what. So what was he doing? Well, it's at the Twitter feed for the recount or whatever. It was the same source of that video. So that news outlet that put that video online tweeted, "We think Ted Cruz is surfing Twitter right now." They said that in real time, and he wrote back and said, "Yup." It was very funny. I know you don't have to find it's not the most important thing, but it was a hoot. Well, let me tell you, it's 12:55, and I don't want to start a new subject because we're almost out of time. Oh, you got to hear this. Just take a quick look. So there's the recount. Either Senator Ted Cruz is reading and responding to our tweets in real time during this hearing, or someone on his staff is. And he writes back, "Yep." Here, click on those two. Yeah. Ted Cruz. Watch Ted Cruz swipe through his phone and completely ignore Amy Klobuchar. And the other one, yeah. Senator Ted Cruz appears to be a diet Dr. Pepper guy. Hey, me too. I think that is the best tasting diet soft drink. What do you think? I love regular Dr. Pepper. It's an incredible drink. In my opinion, it should be more popular. I know it's slightly weird, but it's so bloody tasty. The diet version is one of the few diet soft drinks that are palatable, in my view. I think it's because that Dr. Pepper taste blacks out the awful sweetener taste that you get from like a Diet Coke. I haven't had a Diet Coke in decades. Looking at me says, Ezra, maybe you should have a few Diet Cokes. Donald Trump had some amazing tweets about Diet Coke, and it's a shame that his Twitter, there was so many, can you Google the Library of Alexandria? Can you Google that? I think it was one of the wonders of the ancient world. There was the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. There was the Pyramid of Giza, or Cheops. There was the Colossus of Rhodes, this huge statue. And sure. The Library of Alexandria. You can go to Wikipedia even though you don't want to trust Wikipedia for too much, but on something like this, the Library of Alexandria was regarded as the most important library in the ancient world. Pump it up a bit. The Great Library of Alexandria in Alexandria, Egypt, was one of the most significant libraries of the ancient world. That's almost exactly what I just said. The library was part of a larger research institution called the Museon, which was dedicated to the Muses, the 9 goddesses of the arts. The idea of a universal library in Alexandria may have been proposed by blah, blah, blah. Well-funded policies for procuring text. It is unknown precisely how many such scrolls were housed at any given time, but estimates range from 40,000 to 400,000. They collected any written works. And you can see on the right there, estimates vary, the equivalent of 100,000 books. Estimated to have employed over 100 scholars at its height. Alexandria came to be regarded as the capital of knowledge and learning, in part because of the Great Library. Many important and influential scholars worked at the library during the 3rd and 2nd centuries BC, including, among others, Xenodotus. I'll skip those. I don't know who all those for, but some scholars. Despite the widespread modern belief the Library of Alexandria was burned once cataclysmically destroyed, the library actually declined gradually over the course of several centuries. Okay, I thought it was burned. The library, or part of its collection, was accidentally burned by Julius Caesar during the Civil War. That's terrible. But it's unclear how much was actually destroyed, and it seems to have either survived or been rebuilt shortly after. How you rebuild a scroll? Anyways, imagine that, eh? 2,000 years ago, a library with all the knowledge of the ancient world. And Julius Caesar burns it accidentally. That's how I feel about losing those beautiful tweets. Donald Trump had a tweet for every subject. including Diet Coke. Do you remember his Diet Coke tweets? They were wonderful. We have lost a great reservoir of knowledge. There's a tweet for every occasion. He had a wonderful tweet about Cinco de Mayo. Lost, like the Great Library of Alexandria. Oh, no, probably not. We'll get banned. Odyssey Binga says, don't want to be called Gestapo, then don't act like it. Yeah, exactly. My friends, it's 12:59. Thank you. Let's just do a quick look. And, oh, there was a hyper chat I didn't read? I thought I just did. So we've got 90 folks on Odyssey. Thanks for joining us there. We've got 1,500 people watching on the YouTube censorship channel. Thanks for watching there. We've got 83 people watching on Super U, the free speech channel. Thank you. And Rumble, we have 1,800 people there. So altogether, a good show. And thanks for participating. I got a show tonight. I'm going to talk about the end of the era of peace. Hey, there's war in Israel. Terrorists are on the march again. There's gas shortages in America, but at least there's none of those pesky, pesky Donald Trump tweets, eh? We also got Joel Pollack, and he's coming on about the war and Biden. Yeah, so we'll have a good show tonight. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do. Go to rebelnews.com and click subscribe. It's $8 a month. You get access to my nightly TV-style show. And Sheila Gunn Reid has a weekly show called, it's not Gunshots, it's The Gun Show. The Gun Show, and her shorties are called Gunshots. And of course, David Menzies has Rebel Roundup, and then Andrews Chapados has a show. So there's a lot of content just for premium viewers. All right, I'm going to say goodbye now. Do we have a dog video? All right, here's a dog video curated by Justin. I'll see you later.